The courtroom clock clicked louder than it should have, the kind of sound you notice when everyone is trying to pretend they are calm. We sat a few rows back, quiet enough to be forgotten, watching a father lean on a legal process like it was a weapon he had practiced with for years. Eliza Thornton's experience matters because the threat was not embarrassment, it was erasure. The kind that comes with paperwork, soft language, and someone else deciding you are no longer allowed to speak for yourself. What came next was the way she lived it. I arrived with my attorneys in a plain folder that looked too small to hold the last 2 years of my life. Charles Thornton was already at the front, turned half sideways so he could face the judge and still keep me in his line of sight. He wore the suit he saved for weddings and funerals. He used the same voice for both. "Your Honor, my daughter cannot manage her affairs," he announced. "She is unstable. She is mentally incompetent. She is isolated and reckless." My attorney, Marlene Price, leaned in just enough for me to hear her breath. "Stay still. Let him build his own record." The judge looked down at the file, then up at my father. "Mr. Thornton, this petition requests an emergency conservatorship over an adult. I am not granting anything on speeches." He nodded like he had been waiting for that line. "I can prove it. She refuses help. She lives alone. No family can reach her." I watched his hands as he talked. They shook when he got excited, like his body couldn't keep up with his certainty. A woman behind him, my Aunt Denise, stood when the clerk called her name. She didn't look at me. Not once. Denise spoke toward the bench. "We have tried to support Eliza. She won't accept treatment. She becomes fixated. She thinks people are after her. She has no stable life." Marlene's partner, Grant Sutter, slid a single page across our table toward the bailiff. Filed exhibits, independent evaluations, employment verification, financial records, all authenticated. My father's head snapped toward us. "She's putting on a show. She always does this. She hires people to make her look capable." Judge Morrison held up a hand. "Mr. Thornton, stop talking over counsel." He pushed forward anyway. "Look at her. She won't even speak." I kept my eyes on the bench. My throat was tight, but not from fear. From remembering how close he'd come before. We noticed Eliza's fingers press once into the edge of the folder, then release, like a quiet reset. The judge turned to me. "Ms. Thornton, you understand the petition in front of the court." My voice came out steady. "I understand." Denise flinched at the sound, like she had convinced herself I wouldn't make one. Marlene spoke again, calm and flat. "We oppose the petition in full. There is no medical basis, no independent physician report, and a documented history of coercive attempts." My father laughed. "Too loud for the room. She's charming when she wants to be. That's the problem." The judge's gaze didn't move. This court does not confuse volume with proof. I sat back and let the air move through my lungs. If you stay with me through this, the next part will make sense of why I did not raise my voice. Even once. Denise stayed standing longer than necessary, hands folded like she was waiting for permission to exist. "We've been worried for a long time." She told the judge, "Eliza doesn't see things the way the rest of us do. She cuts people off. She won't return calls. She insists she's fine when she's clearly not." I kept my eyes forward. The wood on the table had a thin crack running through it, patched badly. Someone had tried to fix it without replacing the board. Denise went on. "Her work isn't stable. She jumps from project to project. She tells stories about contracts that don't make sense. When we ask for details, she gets defensive." My father nodded along, quick and eager. "She exaggerates. Always has. It's easier to pretend you're successful than to admit you need help." Grant leaned toward the bench. "May I respond to the witness?" The judge nodded once. Grant's voice stayed even. "Ms. Thornton, when was the last time you personally reviewed my client's employment records?" Denise hesitated. "I haven't seen records. I've heard things." Heard from whom? From Charles. From family. Grant didn't push. He let the silence sit until it got uncomfortable. My father stepped in. Your Honor, this is exactly the pattern. She surrounds herself with professionals so no one can get close enough to see what's wrong. Marlene shifted a file and spoke without raising her voice. Or she hires professionals because she has the means and the judgment to do so. The judge looked back at my father. Mr. Thornton, you will stop interrupting. He pressed his lips together, then glanced at me. You see how she does this. She hides behind lawyers. Always has. I felt the old reflex pull at my chest, the urge to explain myself, to list facts until someone nodded. I let it pass. Denise finally sat down. She smoothed her skirt, then whispered toward my father. I tried. The judge turned to the clerk. I will review the submitted evaluations and financial documentation. This court is not persuaded by character assessments alone. My father exhaled sharply. So she just gets to walk away again. Marlene closed the folder in front of me, soft but final. No one is walking away. This is just in the part where evidence matters. I folded my hands together and waited. The knock came just after dinner. 2 short raps that didn't wait for an answer. I opened the door to 2 officers standing side by side, hands resting near their belts, eyes already scanning past me into the apartment. Ms. Thornton, the taller one said, careful and polite. We're here to do a welfare check. I stepped back so they could see the living room. Clean. Quiet. Laptop open on the kitchen counter. A video call paused mid-screen. Is there a problem? I asked. The shorter officer glanced at the paper in his hand. We've been given an order for an involuntary psychiatric hold. Claims of delusional behavior, financial recklessness. I felt the room tilt, just slightly. Not panic. Recognition. Who signed that? I asked. He read the name, then hesitated, like he already didn't like the answer. Dr. Alan Mercer. I shook my head. I've never met him. Behind them, a neighbor's door cracked open, then shut again. I could feel the building listening. The taller officer looked at my screen. You were on a call. I still am. I tapped the keyboard. I muted myself. A man's voice filled the room. Eliza, you're back. We lost you for a second. That's Tom, I said, keeping my voice even. He's with the compliance office. We were reviewing audit findings. The shorter officer shifted his weight. Can you tell us what day it is? Tuesday. Where you are. My apartment in Columbus. He nodded once, then looked at his partner. They stepped aside, whispering just out of earshot. I stood there with my arms crossed, not to protect myself, just to keep from reaching for the phone. The taller one came back first. Ms. Thornton, we're not seeing signs that justify this hold. The shorter officer added, Your place is orderly. You're oriented. You've got active employment. He paused. We're going to note this as a malicious filing. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Will he try again? I asked. The taller officer didn't answer directly. If he does, it'll be harder. After they left, I sat on the floor with my back against the cabinet. My phone buzzed. My father's name lit the screen. I didn't answer. The next morning, a notice arrived by email confirming the report had been flagged. No charges, no apology. Just a line that said the incident was closed. That was the night I stopped believing silence would protect me. I didn't call my father after that night. I didn't warn him. I didn't confront him. I did the opposite of what he expected. I called my lawyer. Marlene listened without interrupting, her pen moving in short strokes. When I finished, she closed the notebook and leaned back. You don't need to react. You need insulation. From him, I said. From the system he's trying to use. A week later, Grant joined us on a video call. He didn't waste time. No direct ties. No payments in your name. No emails that look personal. I don't want him to think I'm behind anything. I said, he won't. Grant replied, He'll think he got lucky. We built it slowly. Third parties. Distance. Paperwork that didn't carry my voice or my face. I didn't touch his accounts. I didn't buy his problems outright. Other people did that. Professionally, quietly. A few months in, Marlene slid a draft across the table. Senior secured, cross-collateralized. And this, she tapped a paragraph near the end. Morality and misrepresentation, Grant added. And a cognate note. Legal here. Fast. I read every line. Twice. If he defaults, I said. It's not because I pushed. It's because he steps on it himself. Marlene said. I signed. Then didn't think about it for a while. That part surprised me. How normal everything felt afterward. Work calls, deadlines, groceries, the same coffee order every morning. Then my father called one afternoon. Voice bright in a way that made my jaw tighten. Good news. Investors came through. I told you things would turn around. I'm glad, I said. You always doubt me, he replied, laughing. That's your problem. I stared at the calendar on my wall while he talked about momentum and confidence and how some people just know how to recognize talent. When the call ended, I sat there for a moment, phone still warm in my hand. I didn't feel victorious. I felt prepared, and that was enough. I saw the car before I saw him. It was parked crooked in front of the restaurant, dark blue, still wearing that new shine that hasn't learned the road yet. My father stood beside it, keys swinging from one finger like he wanted someone to notice. Eliza, he called when he spotted me. You like it. I stopped a few steps away. It's a lot of car. He grinned. When you've earned it, you don't apologize. Inside. He ordered for both of us without asking. Old habit. He talked the whole time the menus were still open. Words stacking up faster than the waiter could pour water. Things are moving again, he said. Real momentum. Serious capital. People who see value. I nodded once. He leaned back, stretching, the way he used to after a good day at the office. I told them about you, about how you're careful, how you don't always understand risk. I took a sip of water. It tasted like lemon rind. You always played it safe. He went on. That's why you never really took off. You hide behind consultants and compliance rules. I kept my hands flat on the table. That's the job. He laughed. That's what I mean. You don't think big. The food arrived. He barely touched his plate. Too busy talking. About growth. About respect. About how close he'd come to losing everything before someone stepped in at the right moment. You should see the paperwork, he said. Complex stuff. Not your world. I watched the condensation slide down his glass. I'm sure. When we stood to leave, he tossed the valet ticket like a tip. One day you'll understand what confidence looks like. Outside. He opened the car door and paused. You know I worry about you. Even now. I met his eyes. I know. He drove off slow, letting the engine speak for him. I stood there longer than I needed to, listening to the sound fade. The car wasn't the problem. The problem was how much air he thought it gave him. I checked my phone once, then put it back in my pocket. Nothing had changed. Not really. He just didn't know it yet. The judge came back after a short recess, glasses set carefully on the bench like she didn't want them to make a sound. Having reviewed the filings and testimony, she said, "The petition for emergency conservatorship is denied." My father stiffened. Not surprised, offended. There is no independent medical evidence. The judge continued. What I do see is a pattern of personal conflict being brought into a legal forum that does not support it. He leaned forward. So she just walks out. The judge's eyes lifted. Ms. Thornton is not on trial here. Marlene rested a hand on my forearm. Light. Grounding. My father shook his head and let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. Unbelievable. The judge added one more thing. Voice steady. Any further attempts to misuse this court will be viewed seriously. We stood. Papers slid back into folders. The room loosened a notch, like everyone had been holding something in place. Outside the courtroom, my father stopped short, turned toward me. His smile came fast, thin at the edges. "See? I told you. All noise." I didn't answer. He adjusted his jacket, glanced past me at my attorneys. "Enjoy the show." Then he walked away, already dialing someone, voice lifting as if the day had gone exactly the way he planned. Grant exhaled once. "That's over." Marlene didn't agree or disagree. She looked at her watch. "We'll be ready." I nodded. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper. People passed us without looking, wrapped up in their own versions of relief and loss. For a moment, it felt like something had ended. I knew better. I followed my attorneys toward the exit, my steps even, my hands steady. The door opened. Light shifted, and somewhere behind us, a phone kept ringing. We didn't leave the building together. My father went first, phone pressed to his ear, voice already rising like the story had flipped in his favor. I stayed back with Marlene and Grant near the elevators, the kind of pause that looks casual if you don't know what's coming next. Marlene checked her phone once, then nodded. Timing's right. Grant handed a slim envelope to the process server waiting by the wall. No ceremony. Just a quiet exchange and a glance toward the doors. My father was halfway down the steps when the server called his name. "Mr. Thornton." He turned, irritated. "What now?" "You've been served." He stared at the envelope like it had insulted him. "This is harassment. The court just ruled." The server didn't engage. He just waited until my father took it. I watched Charles tear it open with one sharp pull. "What is this?" he snapped, scanning the first page. "Default. Acceleration. This doesn't make any sense." Grant stepped forward. Voice level. "The loan agreement includes a cognate provision. The court entered judgment this morning." My father laughed once, loud and disbelieving. "You can't do that without notice." Marlene answered before Grant could. "You waived notice when you signed." He flipped pages faster, hands starting to shake. "This is about the hearing. That was a family matter. Your filing included false statements." Grant said, "Material misrepresentation. Reputational risk." It triggered the clause. My father looked up at me then, eyes sharp. "You planned this." I met his gaze. "I prepared." He scoffed. "You don't even lend money." "No," Marlene said. "She doesn't." The color drained from his face as he read further. "Asset freeze, accounts, receivables, personal guarantees." His phone buzzed in his hand. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. "This is abuse," he said, voice cracking. "I'll file bankruptcy." Grant shook his head once. "The guarantees are personal. Cross-collateralized." "What collateral?" my father demanded. "The vehicle," Marlene said. "The equipment, the accounts, everything listed." He swallowed. "I bought that car outright. With loan proceeds," Grant replied, "and pledged it." My father's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around like he expected someone to stop this. No one did. The phone rang again. He answered this time, listening for a few seconds before pulling it away from his ear. "They froze payroll," he said. "They froze everything." Marlene checked her watch. "That's consistent." My father stared at the envelope, then at me. "You didn't have to do this." I didn't step closer. "You didn't have to file." For a moment, he looked small, not defeated, just exposed. Then another notification lit his screen, and he turned away, already losing the ground under his feet. The messages started before sunset, first from a vendor I recognized. Short, professional. "We're pausing services until the account review clears." Then another. "Payment didn't process. Please advise." My father called once. I let it ring. An hour later, Marlene forwarded an update. The freeze was active across all linked accounts, corporate and personal, receivables locked, credit lines suspended. I pictured him at his desk, refreshing the same screen, expecting it to change if he waited long enough. The next morning, a text came through from a number I didn't have saved. "Eliza, it's your father. Call me." I didn't. By noon, Grant sent a short note. "Vehicle secured. Immobilization confirmed." I imagined the car sitting exactly where he'd left it, looking the same as it had the day before. Shiny. Useless. Later that afternoon, Denise tried. Her voice message came in soft and rushed. "This has gone too far. He's scared. He can't even buy gas." I deleted it without replying. That evening, I stopped at the grocery store on my way home. The cashier smiled, asked if I wanted a receipt. Normal things. I paid, packed my bag, walked out. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father's lawyer. "Eliza," he said when I answered. His tone had changed. "Careful now. We're hoping to discuss options. Some flexibility." I leaned against the counter and watched the kettle start to steam. "You should talk to the debt administrator." A pause. "This is still your father." "I know." Silence stretched. Then he cleared his throat. "I'll relay that." After the call, I stood there for a minute longer than necessary, hand resting on the counter, feeling the heat rise. Nothing dramatic had happened. No shouting. No final scene. Just a series of doors closing, one by one, until the room went quiet. I turned off the stove and poured the water, steady and unhurried, like this was just another evening. A few weeks later, I stood inside the building on High Street, the one with the brick facade that caught the afternoon light without trying to impress anyone. The property manager walked me through the ground floor, talking about leases and timelines. I nodded when it made sense, asked questions when it didn't. When he finished, he waited. "I'll follow up by email," he said. "Please do." After he left, I stayed where I was. No rush. The place smelled like dust and fresh paint. Somewhere upstairs. Someone laughed. Then a door closed. Life. Continuing. My phone buzzed once. A missed call from an unfamiliar number. I didn't return it. That night, I scrolled through my contacts and stopped when I reached my father's name. I didn't block it. I didn't add a note. I deleted it and set the phone face down on the table. The next morning, an email came in from his attorney. Short, polite, asking if I would consider discussing revised terms. I typed one sentence. "Please coordinate with the debt administrator." I signed it with my name. Eliza Thornton. Nothing else. When I hit send, I didn't feel relief or satisfaction. I felt space, like a room that had finally been cleared out enough to breathe. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching people move past with their bags and phones and plans. I wasn't thinking about winning. I wasn't thinking about him at all. What stayed with me was simpler. I didn't need to be louder. I didn't need to explain myself better. I just needed to stop being reachable to the part of my life that kept trying to pull me backward. That's what changed, not my circumstances. My position inside them. We noticed that some endings don't arrive with noise. They arrive when someone decides, quietly, to stay where they are. If this story stayed with you, you know where to find the rest.